If you now want to go back into your property to make some changes or add some more stock or extra information, you can either go up here to manage property, or you can go to my properties and there'll be a list of properties that you can select if you have more than one. But for now, we'll just go to manage property. So this will be familiar to you from the setup wizard. We have our summary of pastures here. So we have at the date we made the last record, how much land area we have, pasture mass, what target we have, and our summer and winter active species. Our livestock summary here, we've only got 500 breeding ewes at the moment, and this is our rainfall from the last 7 days. So this rainfall is automatically downloaded from BOM every day, so it's as up to date as it can be. So to access your information that you've entered, it's arranged in these tabs, so you can just click on those and you'll be able to see what information you've already put in there, edit it if you want to change something, or add a new record. So we'll just look at the pasture. The last entry was on the 23rd of July, and we can see that there was a measurement of 1,500 kilos. Now if I think I made a mistake and actually want to go back and change something, I just click on this edit button. It'll bring up the old record for me, and I can go in there, change my measurement and save it. But if I want to add a new record, just click on this button here. It'll bring up exactly the same information as your previous record, so you don't have to do any double data entry, and you just update the relevant bits of information. Now it's really important to stress that unless you got something really wrong, don't delete anything, because the history in ASKBILL is important. ASKBILL needs to know what was the pasture back then, what is it now, so that it can accurately predict what the pasture availability is going to be in the future. And that's the same with your livestock. If you have 5,000 sheep and you sell all of them, you can't just delete the mob, because it will be as if they never existed. They were never there on that property to eat grass. And so ASKBILL's predictions are all going to be completely wrong. If you want to actually modify your pasture targets, just click into this tab. You can see what targets you have in there. You can edit that target, or you can add new targets as well. So it might be that you want to enter a number of targets for key times throughout the year. So it could be at the start of lambing, halfway through, the end of lambing, lamb marking, weaning, as many as you want. The livestock tab is a little bit different. So traits is where we have basically the setup for the growth parameters as well as the visual scores. So this is information that you don't actually want to change very often, if at all. You really want to just set it and forget it. You can always come back in if you've got something wrong and change it, but very rarely would you have a need to do that. If you want to change your stock numbers or add in a weight, you can click on this one here. So you enter the date that something happened to them. You maybe bought another 100 animals, or you sold 100 animals, and that will update your running tally. If you don't actually have a weight, I would delete that one, so it automatically pre-filled it from last time. And if you sold them, you can say who you sold it to, or you just say not a sale, so you might have just moved them to a different paddock. Then you would, once you've entered the date and all the other information, you save that, or you can view the history for that stock class. So we've only got one record in here at the moment, which was our starting number, but that will gradually build up over time. Here we can have a look at our targets that we've got in for that stock class. So it asks you when we set up the class for a weight and a condition score. And you can enter more targets in here as well. So just like we did for pastures, you could have targets for the start of lambing, weaning, and so on. To add more stock classes, just click on this button here. We'll add some lambs now. And I'm going to select weaners. So this is anything from 12 weeks to 1 year old. Choose your breed type. It asks for a target. So if they're 30 kilos now, we might want them to be 35 by the end of the month, just to make sure they're going okay. I'll use the recommended values. They're fairly plain, so their fly strike risk is going to be quite low. They're not mules. So now we have our lambs entered here. Just like we did for the ewes, we can update how many we have or their weight. They haven't got a condition score because we use weight instead of condition score for these lambs. And we can go and add extra targets and view what targets we've already put in if we want to. We'll have a look at the risks now. There's a new row for the lambs that we just put in, and you'll see that there's no risk for cold lambs or for heat, because ASKBILL knows that these lambs don't actually have any offspring and are not of breeding age, and there's also no condition score. Key dates is where you enter information about your shearing dates, crutching, preg scanning and joining. If you enter a joining date, ASKBILL can automatically work out when those lambs are due and also when they should be weaned based on information you've given the program when you set up that ewe stock class. Also, if you shear regularly, you can enter it as a recurring date so that instead of having to enter it every time it happens, you can enter it once and it'll automatically work out when shearing is next going to happen. Also, if you have multiple stock classes, they'll appear in rows down here, and you can just check the box corresponding to that stock class to say that you have shorn them. When you save an entry, they'll show up here in rows, so you can keep a log of exactly what's happened on what dates. You can also put in your worm test results and have a handy summary of them in ASKBILL to refer back to. With treatments, this is where you can enter any fly or worm treatments. So the fly treatments, we have a list of all chemicals that are available. If you happen to use something and it's not in this list here, you can let us know and it can be added in very easily. And in the meantime, just use a product that has the same active ingredient. You need to tell ASKBILL where you put that treatment on as well, because if you put it on the body and breech, it will obviously prevent fly strike in both of those regions, but if you only put it on the body, you still have a risk of getting breech strike. Select which class you want to apply that to and click Save. Now, if you add a treatment and it fails to show up here, sometimes that can be an issue with your internet not refreshing properly. So just click on this button here, it'll refresh it and your treatments show up as they should. With worm treatments, it's exactly the same. There's a list of products that you can scroll through, choose the one you want, apply it to the right stock classes and save. Now you'll end up over time with a number of treatments, so you can sort them by date. You can also filter them by stock class, so if you've got ewes and lambs and a number of other different mobs, you might just want to look at any treatments you've used for one group, so you can do that, or you can filter by type of risk that you've tried to treat. This feeding tab is where you enter any supplementary feed that you give them. To add a new feed record, you need to put in the date that you started feeding and the date that you finished feeding. If you feed several times a week over a 2-month period, then you can put the end date out to the end of when you expect you'll finish feeding. So you don't have to keep coming in every time you feed and updating the records. Enter how many kilos per head per day they're eating. And then you can select what the feed type is from this preset list of defaults. Apply that to your stock class, and that'll save there. To have a look at what feed types are actually available to give out, this is the list of all the defaults that are in there already. So they give you your digestibility, crude protein, and the fibre content. But if you have something on farm that you want to feed out that doesn't match with any of these predefined values, you can add your own feed type. So it might be some barley that you've harvested yourself, and you can enter your own values there. This is also quite handy if you have a feedlot pellet or some other custom mixed ration that you have a feed test result for. Rainfall, this is where you can enter your own rainfall if it happens to be different from the BOM measurements. So we have, this is today's date, and you can go back and have a look at what was the recorded rainfall and the temperature on preceding days. If BOM has recorded a certain rainfall event, but you didn't actually have that happen on a farm, you can just overwrite the BOM record by entering your own measured value, and that will update the system so that your predictions are as accurate as they can be. The next video will take you through the Monitor Areas tab and explain what these are and how you use them.